Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the Knitknacker Natters Podcast. I'm Fatima and I'm your host, and I am currently coming to you from London in the UK. Now, for those of you who are new, welcome. You probably are a little bit confused because usually I'm based in Singapore, and that's kind of what comes under my byline as well. So yes, I'm a British expat that lives in Singapore. I'm currently in the UK visiting my parents, and this is a crafting podcast, which is in the midst of the Wonders of the World KAL. So for those of you who don't know, the Wonders of the World KAL is a 6-month fibre arts adventure that's taking you around the world, continent by continent, excluding Antarctica. We started off in January in Australasia. We moved on in February to Africa, and March is my month. It's all about Asia. Now, I apologise profusely because I was supposed to be doing a week by week podcast, but you can tell I've not been very well, and this is probably the first opportunity I've got to chat to you guys. And what better time when everyone's having such an amazing time in Edinburgh, where I wanted to be but couldn't. So I just thought it was a great opportunity to sit down and chat with you all, and reach out to my yarny friends. World KAL Asia. March is all about us kind of discovering the fibre arts in Asia, and it's about researching Asian designers, dyers, yarn companies, spinners, if you know any, and just expanding our knowledge base. There are lots of designers and lots of fibre art crafts coming out of Asia, but they're not maybe as well known as those in Europe, the US, and even Australia. So this is really our opportunity to go on this journey together, and I'm finding out lots along the way too. So the month kicked off with a wonderful Japanese writer guest writing a blog post on my blog, which is on knitknackercrafts.com, and it's /blog, and her name is June. It goes by the name Trico Quilio. I've probably butchered that, but I'm going to put all the information below. And she writes for magazines, and she helps promote Japanese designers. And she very kindly agreed to write a post to help us discover kind of Japanese yarn. Everyone knows that the Japanese knitting industry is huge. It can sometimes be difficult to navigate because Japanese knitting patterns and crochet patterns might be written or are written slightly differently than traditional kind of British, American, Australian patterns. And I thought it was a great opportunity to kind of discover that world. So she has very kindly written a post about the Japanese yarn industry, or current Japanese yarns, which is over on the blog. If you haven't read it, please do go along and take a read, because it helped introduce me to numerous different yarn brands that I hadn't come across or I wasn't aware of before. Apologies, I'm going to try and edit as much of the coughing and the nasalness as much as I can, but I hope you'll bear with. So as I was saying, she's done a fantastic job. Do go along and have a read. And she has very kindly agreed to write another piece, which I'll be popping up on the blog probably next week, about a particular Japanese designer that's new and upcoming. She's actually sent me a draft already, so I'm just going to be having a read through of that later today before we finalise it. So that's hopefully a useful insight for you guys into that part of the world. Now, what's going on with me? So before I talk about the projects that I've been working on, which are all kind of Asia related, we have 2 KALs going on in the group. I decided that we would do a 1-month KAL, which was to start and either knit or crochet a stuffy, an amigurumi, which you needed to finish by the 31st of March. And there is an awesome finished object in the finished objects thread, Freddie. Please do go and check it out. It's on the Knitknacker Natters podcast group. And it's really your opportunity to try a Japanese technique. So you do not need to crochet. It can be a knitted stuffy. It, as I will explain later, is supposed to be a doll, so a knitted or crocheted doll. Just needs to be started in March and finished in March, obviously, to be eligible. It's more about kind of trying out the technique if you haven't, and if you are a great lover of making knitted or crocheted dolls, great, please do enter. I'll be chatting a little bit about amigurumi in a second. So that's the 1-month KAL, because I thought that was probably going to be something easier to achieve. We also have a second kind of thread that's all about Asian yarn, Asian designers, etc. And basically it's your opportunity to knit or crochet something, or even spin if you can find some Asian fibre. From the beginning of March up until the end of the entire Wonders of the World KAL. So there is a separate thread for that. There is one general chatter thread, and all the information is in my podcast group. So please do go along and check it out. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me either directly, message me on Ravelry, or message me on Instagram. Okay, so today I wanted to share with you a little bit about amigurumi. So amigurumi. Amigurumi is a word that's come about from 2 Japanese words. Ami means crochet or knit, or knitted, and niugurumi, and I apologise profusely if I'm butchering all of this, is a stuffed doll. And the 2 are combined to come up with amigurumi, which is a crocheted or knitted doll. And it's a phrase that came about in the 1950s in Japan, and I think was probably introduced in the West kind of towards the latter end, the 1990s, 2000s. But it's not something that's new or novel. And when I was doing my research, my understanding is that in Japan itself, knitting kind of, or the art of knitting, or the craft, has a long-standing history, and was previously used by the samurai to make socks, and later on for people to make clothing, and the way that Japanese patterns, both knitted and crocheted, are written is very much based on characters and symbols, and given the way that they have developed their technique of pattern writing, it kind of formed a basis of how amigurumi developed. My understanding is that although the phrase itself wasn't coined until the 1950s, the very first amigurumi was actually crocheted back in, I want to say 1887, I think so, and it was a loquat with on a twigged leaf, or a leaf with a twig on it, and this is something I've gotten from a Japanese source, and there are apparently many examples in history of other fruits that have been crocheted, and if we look at the West, there have been magazines dating back to the 1880s which talk about knitted dolls. So the question is amigurumi an Asian technique, or is it something that's come about or been highlighted by Japanese crafters, but is it something that's always kind of been there? You will find that Asian crafters tend to crochet their dolls, whereas in the West it's predominantly been knitting or knitted dolls, which I find really, really interesting. Going back to the concept of amigurumi and how it developed from the 1950s forward, Japan obviously had a huge change in how it wanted itself to be perceived and how it needed to develop its country post Hiroshima. There was a huge emphasis on industrialization, people moving away from their villages and towns into the cities for work, and a concept of cuteness, or kawi, was developed. People weren't able to stay in touch as they would have liked with family and friends, and so people created these knitted or crocheted dolls, which was supposed to be something that you gave to somebody else to remind them of you, and as gifts, and hence we have a culture of amigurumi. For the purpose of this KAL, like I said, knitted or crocheted, I'm not going to quibble about whether or not it's a Japanese or a Western technique. I think the concept amigurumi is very much Japanese in nature. Whether this technique itself originated purely from Japan, it's neither here nor there, as far as I'm concerned. I would love for you guys to get involved, and on that note, I'm going to show you what I have been working on. So it's amigurumi, and I have never done amigurumi. I have bought one of Kay Jones's patterns from the Bakery Bears podcast, of her Bakery Bear, which I wanted to knit for my son, and I had bought all the yarn before I gave birth and just never got round to it, and he's not really that into stuffed animals at present, so it's kind of been on the back burner, and I've always thought about making or knitting it up for somebody else, but just haven't gotten around to it as yet. But it's on my to-do list. So for the purpose of this month, I decided that I wanted to work on designs all with yarns that were Asian in origin. So I have picked L, the elephant, and the design that I picked is by a Thai designer who has a very long name, and I'm going to pop it on the screen below, but also has an Etsy shop that I'm going to pop the name down below as well because I can't pronounce it. Here's a picture of the elephant. So I misread the pattern and didn't realise that it needed a full ply yarn, and bought some DK yarn. And for any of those self-confessed yarn snobs, please look away, because I'm using Starcraft Special DK in the raspberry colourway, and it is 100% acrylic. It matches my scarf. I think it's fine to work with on this project, and obviously it's going to be washable, so it's going to be great to give to kids. And I have done 3 bits of this elephant. I had started on an ear, but I ripped it out. I have one arm, and one of these is a head and one of these is a body. Now, you'd think this was the body and this was the head, but actually it's the opposite. So I think I've done something wrong based on having done this. When I crochet, especially, I tend to just use one loop as opposed to putting my hook through both loops of the stitch. Having watched a few YouTube videos, I didn't think that was wrong. I thought you could do both, but I'm thinking not, because I think the fabric of this looks quite different. Oh, where is it focusing on? To this, which I think is what it's supposed to look like. So I have, I think, only gone through one loop on both of these, so these are probably going to be ripped out, but they weren't that, they didn't take that long to do, so it's fine. I did start another arm, but I'm struggling for the first row, so I have ripped that out again as well. But this is my Amigurumi, and actually, if you can crochet, you can do this. It's really straightforward. And this particular pattern doesn't use magic loops or anything like that, so you're not having to kind of manage yarn in a way that's difficult for a beginner. So even if you're a beginner, I'd say go ahead and try. I'm hoping that this will be finished by next week. I've got a trunk to do, I've got 2 legs, an arm and 2 ears. And actually, I'm probably going to redo these 2 as well, so maybe the entirety of it. I am using a 3mm clover hook. I think the pattern calls for a 2mm, but because I used the wrong yarn. Hey ho. So that's the first thing I'm working on. The next thing I'm working on are some, I put them down in my show notes as secret socks. They're not secret socks, they're just, I'm trying something out on the leg, and so I'm just going to show you the back. But this is my Papiput yarn from Amelia, and Papiput yarn is from Indonesia. So Amelia dyes in Indonesia, and I love this. I cast on 60 stitches, 2x2 rib. I think it was 20 rows, and then I've started on the leg. I'm doing 2x2, guys. So it's a combination of Mina's 2x2 tutorial that I used, and something that she said was really interesting for me, because I often find that if I have more than 60 stitches, the cuff is too loose. If it's less than 60 stitches, it's difficult to get over my foot. So I wasn't sure what to do about the rim. And then she mentioned something about how when you do your cast on, you actually need to do a really loose cast on and leave space between your stitches, which I did for one and not for the other. Just because I kind of cast on and then started watching, and nah. So anyway, that's what I've done for one. So I'll see if it makes a difference. I don't know how loose I actually went. I think I was a bit worried at some point. It wasn't very loose, but I'm quite enjoying this. So like I said, it's a combination of Mina, and then instead of splitting into 2 balls, I was debating it, but I didn't in the end. I'm using Connie of the Chili Knits Podcast technique of the button. I'm still having to do some kind of yarn untangling, but it's working out fine. Let me see if I can find the ball band to tell you what the colourway name is. I had bought this yarn a while back, and I have shown it on the podcast. Oh, I can't find the ball band. I will try and link it below if I can find it. But this is the colourway is such a departure for me. It's been a pleasure to knit with. I'm using high sharps, 2.25mm needles, and I love your yarn, Amelia. And as I mentioned on the podcast before, Amelia does not have expensive yarn, and she has quite reasonable shipping too. Obviously it's cheaper for me to get it in Singapore than maybe to have it delivered to the UK, but I still think it's quite reasonable. Please do check her out. She's fantastic, and she names her colourways kind of based on Indonesia, places, things she's come across. So yeah, it's definitely an Indonesian dyer that I would get you to check out. And actually, wasn't a slip of the tongue, she is a designer, and she's recently published a design that I had put on my Instagram feed. So do check her out if you get a chance. So what else am I working on? Trying to think now. Oh, yes. So the third design item that I'm working on, project that I'm working on, is housed in my newly acquired little bobbins bag. I haven't even taken off the tag. I have always wanted one of her bags, Danny's bags, and never ever seemed to get there in time. And it was very bizarre. I feel like it was fate, but I think she posted that she posted some bags online, and like literally it was about 20 seconds after she posted that I saw the post. So I kind of hopped over to her shop and purchased not one but 2. The other one is upstairs somewhere, and it's one of the sheepy ones, but I don't have it down here, so I can't show you. But I'm so excited, and it's lovely. The kind of creases are all me, because I have been shoving it into my bag whenever I go out, in the hope that I might be able to work on this project. So yeah, I love it. It's gorgeous canvas, and then she's got some stitching here and applique. It's really lovely. So yeah. So I am working on the Mountain Form slippers, and these are by June, who has written the article on the blog. They are originally a pattern from a Japanese lady that she was told about, and I'll link the name in my show notes. And she's kind of adjusted the pattern or adapted it to what it is today. And I have done one slipper. I'm not going to call it a half finished object, a project half done, sorry, because I'm if you can see, I have my darning needle. I need to seam the back of the slipper. So what am I using? I am using Debbie Bliss Cashmerino Aran. If you can read that, it's colourway 300071. It's like a dusky rose colour, and I really like it. And actually, I've worked with this yarn before, and I've always really loved it, but I love the colour. So I would love to maybe have a sweater I'm not sure I can afford it at the moment. Anyways, if you can see, this is a pattern. Oh, I'm kind of already started, but you start off kind of flat and you knit back and forth, and then you join in the round and you have some ribbing, and then you kind of have knit in stockinette and then create the toe, and you can adjust the pattern. She gives you instructions on how to adjust the pattern for your foot length and also for the opening. I didn't make any adjustments at the opening, which maybe I should have actually, so that the foot bit could have been longer. But I made the ribbing shorter, and I also made the foot bit shorter so that it would fit my foot, because my foot is only a size 35, which is about a 2.5 or 3 UK, a 5 US, I think. So yeah, this is actually very straightforward and very quick to do. I really had hoped that I would be able to show it to you as a half-finished object, but I just didn't get round to seaming it before I podcast. I have a very short window because my son's napping at the moment, and the minute he's awake, that's it. So yes, this is the third project that I'm working on, so hopefully I'll be able to steam this today and get started on the second one. So you never know, there might be 2 finished objects next week. There is a third project that I have shown on my Instagram feed that I would like to make, which is by a Japanese designer. It's a hat pattern called Kei, it's Kei, and the designer, let me check my notes, is Noriko Ichikawa, and it's made out of bulky yarn, so I'm going to be using this Madeline Tosh Chunky in the esoteric colourway. So teals, kind of peacock green, and some charcoal, which you can't tell so obviously on here, but there is like a charcoal or dark green, both. So I thought this would be quite pretty. I'm going to insert a picture of what it looks like here. So yeah, that's going to be the other project that I'm going to be working on. I did have another project, but I just don't think I'm going to get around to it, so I've benched that for the moment because I have so many other things to work on it anyway. But like I said, I had wanted to try and pick patterns or yarns or dyes that were predominantly Asian for this month, so let's see how things go. Now, I don't think I showed you guys what the prices were for the KAL. So I've got a few prizes with me, a few I don't have. One of the prizes is a pattern by Meg Gadsby, British-Australian designer. Beautiful, beautiful designs, so do check her out. And she has very kindly gifted a viewer a pattern for this month. The other one is a cute Amigurumi book, and this, I don't think, I did read inside, I don't think that the designers for this are actually based in Asia, but my understanding is that they have travelled to Japan and have taken have been influenced rather by kind of their time there, and it's kind of animal patterns which I thought were really cute. So there's this. There is, of course, the Wonders of the World mini skein set. So I have the mini skeins here. There are 6 mini skeins on a 75-25 kind of superwash merino nylon base, and these are dyed by my Yarn Story company. So I'm sure most of you are aware that I commissioned these from Joan, who is the Singaporean dyer behind this company, and the idea was that she would dye one skein for every continent, and I'd put together some mood boards and she'd come up with some ideas as well, and this is what she came up with. So one lucky viewer is going to get one of these, and I also, this is mashed because stupidly I decided to bring it with me. I have 2 skeins of Japanese cotton called Large, and I think this is by Daruma. It's in a grey. It's quite shiny. I don't know if you can tell. It's 100% cotton, and I think it's about a fingering weight. It says 3 to 4 millimeter needles. I think it's a 50-gram ball. I do apologise. There are 2 balls of this, and we also have a lovely skein of yarn donated by Jocelyn, who is the dyer behind Dubai Knit. So I'm not 100% sure which colourway it is yet, but she's very kindly going to be sending that out to a viewer or a participant winner directly. We also have some TWG tea, which is a Singaporean tea company, which I think is it for the moment. So there are quite a few prizes, and I hope you guys will get involved and get researching. We've had some chatter on the thread. There is also a Wonders of the World KAL group, which is supposed to be an amalgamation or rather a group for the 6-month period. There has been chatter in that, and what I love about that group is that this KAL is hopefully a stepping stone for all of us to go beyond what we already know, to look beyond the fibre arts, or to use the fibre arts as a gateway into looking at other cultures and religions and ways of life. That was really my purpose behind this. I think we live in a time that is trying for many people in different ways, and I think knitters are fantastic at reaching out to each other, at being very generous in both their time, effort, money, and skill. And I just think, we need to be the people that we want to see out in the world, and this was for me a way to do that. And I think that's really come across in the Wonders of the World KAL group, because people are looking beyond the fibre arts. There are people who are reading authors from different continents. They are trying foods from different continents, and we are all living vicariously through all of you. And I just think it's amazing, because ignorance is the source of prejudice, and we are far too informed to be at that stage in our lives, as far as I'm concerned. And something that I think Grace of the Bubbles Travelling Yarns said on the Very Little podcast, Marsha of the Very Little podcast, was that one of the things that she's kind of learnt from her year of travelling was what it's like to be in a minority, and just understanding different cultures. And I think that's so important. We often take comfort in what we know, and we are happy in our own little bubbles, but there is a lot going on beyond that, and I think we all have a responsibility to find that out. And I really noticed that in the chatter thread for the Wonders of the World KAL group, and I really want to encourage that, and I'm so happy that this has allowed that to happen. So please do get involved, and if there's any other way that you'd like to get involved, give us a shout. Before I forget, there's 2 things before I go. One is that there is a new podcaster coming out of Asia. She's Celine, and she comes out of Hong Kong, and her podcast is called the Basic Stitch Knitting Podcast, and I think it's less than a week old. She's got one episode out there. Do go and check her out. And the last thing before I forget is that we had a Meg Gadsby pattern giveaway for the Fallberry shawl, and we have a winner. So I'm going to be closing that thread once I finish podcasting, and the winner for that is Oblonsky on Ravelry, who is Aisha from Nottingham. So Aisha, what I would like for you to do is get in touch with Meg directly. So I will get in touch with Meg as well to let her know that you've won, and she will be sending you across a pattern of the shawl. So happy knitting. On that note, I'm going to love you and leave you guys. For all of you who are in Edinburgh, have a fantastic time. Can't wait to see all your hauls and hear all about your trip. And for the rest of you, happy crocheting and happy knitting, and happy discovery. And I hope to hear from more of you on the group. And as always, please feel free to get in touch with me. Like and subscribe. Take care. Bye bye.